Okay, this is really an introduction for teachers that haven't started using the Smart Notebook software and want to get used to it or want to get into it right now. So this is video number 1 on it. You'll see we used Smart Notebook 10, which you can see the icon up here in the top left-hand corner of my screen. We haven't upgraded to Notebook 11, and I really think you should not upgrade to Notebook 11 because of some issues with Notebook 11 and other software. So if you see an upgrade notice, don't do it. That's my first thing I can mention while it's opening up. Okay, so here's our Smart Notebook. We have a large writing area in the middle, and if I look down here on the bottom left-hand corner of my screen, there's a little green check mark that says Auto Hide right now. Anytime we're using it as our whiteboard, as our digital whiteboard, you want to have that checked so that when I'm using the board, that goes away and I've got the full use of the board. Now, I'm going to go over some of the basic buttons up top that you can use. If you're on your Smart Notebook and you pick up your blue pen, it's automatically going to go to the blue pen. But if you're using your mouse, if you're working on this at home and working on a Smart Notebook session that you're trying to build for your class, you might have to mouse up there to choose the blue pen. Now, when I'm writing on the Smart Notebook, one of the greatest things that you can do is you can save all the work you've done, everything you've taught. You can use it for the next class, you can save it for next year, you can keep things organized, and there's no cleanup of your board, and you can go back to stuff you've already taught. Okay? So if we're doing a math lesson, one of the things they talk about is teaching the kids a color code for steps, for things that require steps. For instance, you might say black is how we do the original problem. And math teachers that use their Smart Notebook, and look there, I just spelled wrong, use their Smart Notebook all the time, have a color chart sometimes on the wall to get their kids used to colors meaning stuff, so that you can talk about step number 3 of a problem without actually standing at your board. You can just say step 3 and everyone knows what color step 3 is. So you might say that step 2, or the first real step in doing the problem, is in blue. And you can see how I'm just walking down the colors here so that my kids will know and I might have something like this printed up beside my board, and then obviously I have another color, and I've got tons more colors that I can put in there if I, and I just use my eraser to erase stuff there, and then now this is just an example. If you were doing a problem that required multiple steps, one of the things I can use color for really easily without switching markers. Now, let's look at the buttons up top. The first button I see up here when I look at it is I see a left and a right arrow. If you're on the last page and I hit next page, it automatically adds a next page. So if I've just gone through this and I want to switch because I want to do an example and I hit next page, I've just cleared off my board. And one of the nice things about this is if I'm going through things with kids and you say, hey, do you have any questions? They said, well, I got a question back on problem number 1. You can hit the back arrow and you can go back to what you worked on earlier in that period or that class or that day. And you can save these not only for you to work on later, but you can save them and post them on your Moodle site for kids to be able to reference if you wanted them to. If you do a whole lecture or a whole lesson that you want maybe parents to be able to see, or students to be able to access as notes. So I'll give an example what I'm talking about here. When we go, I'm going to go to my next page again. I'm going to stay with my black pen, and I'm going to be very, very basic here with my problem. So I'm not going to go into any complex math, okay? But I'm going to say, there's my problem that I've given the kids. And I'm working an order of operations here that I'm trying to teach the kids what order to do things next. Now, if I give the pen to a child, I have them pick up the blue pen, or I click on the blue color to make sure, and you don't have to switch pens. if I'm holding the black pen and I switch and I do like that, now the black pen's blue. You don't have to physically pick up pens. So I might be teaching the kids order of operations, and I want to make sure they understand, okay, this is inside the parentheses. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add this together because it's inside the parentheses. So I'm going to get 4 divided by 2 plus 3 equals. And then on my next step, I might have a next child come up. What's the next most important thing? And they're going to say, well, you have to do the division next before I do the addition. So 4 divided by 2 equals 2 plus 3 equals. And then I have my last child maybe come up and do the final step, and he knows that it equals 5. And if there was a problem up there and I asked my kids, hey, what did we do wrong, or what could we have done differently on step number 2, and I've got a chart like this on the side of my board up near above my whiteboard maybe, or beside my whiteboard, it's easy for the kids to know which step I'm talking about and where I was at in the problem. You can just say, hey, on the red line, what was done correctly or what was done incorrectly, or what could you have done differently if there was a problem, which obviously I didn't do a problem with the problem, but you can see what I'm talking about. When I want to go to a new page, I just hit the next arrow and I go to a new page. And like I said, it automatically adds a page if I'm at the end. If I want to see my pages, and by the way, the green plus page always adds a page too, and that's if you're in the middle of a presentation or a lesson and you want to add a page in the middle. That's all you have to do. Instead of going to the next one, maybe you want to throw a blank page in there because you want to expound on something that a student's asked you a question on. So on the buttons on the left hand side here, of those, my first one just expands the pages I've got. So if I've got multiple pages, I can go straight to that page if I want to. If I wanted to add one in the middle here, you can see if I push that add button, it added a blank page in the middle. Automatically took me to that page if I wanted to go to that page. And I've got a little drop down here that I can also use to, when I'm highlighted, I can just hit delete and I can delete that page as well. So I can pop around there, and because I've got the auto hide on down at the bottom left hand corner, when I go back onto my page, that stuff disappears again. So I've got a lot of buttons along the top, and I kind of don't want to go through every single button on this introduction. I just really want to show you the power of using the smart software and how I don't ever have to erase. I can go forward and backwards through problems. If I've got stuff already done in here, you can incorporate a PowerPoint straight into the smart software if you want to, and I'm going to show you that on a different short video. This is just introduction to how to use the basic stuff and why it can be a powerful tool for you in your classroom. When I'm done, I can just hit the save button, and if I want to, I can name it for what the name of the class. If you see my lesson stuff, I have them all divided into chapters so that I know when I'm doing chapter 4, if I need to pick something up, I know I've got them in order of topic, and it just makes it nice for if a student comes in during intervention or stays after school and wants extra help, I can go, oh, well, let's go and talk about where we were in chapter 4 the other day, and I can pull up that exact presentation. Oh, I don't want to save over. Come back and open. I can open up that exact presentation maybe that we were talking about in class that day. I'm going to say no and save this one and open the new one. And I've got a multi-page thing, and maybe we want to go down here to where we were talking about a specific topic and talk about the evolution of buses and expansion slots. But you can see that it allows me to very quickly go back to what I taught in the class without having to recreate anything, because I saved it when I was done. And these graphics, I grabbed all of my graphics straight off of Google Images, and I saved them in something ahead of time so I don't have to pass around stuff like I used to. I've got all kinds of images that I can use a scanner to get. I can pull them straight off of Google Docs. I can screen capture anything that's on my screen and put them in my smart notebook. So it really is something that if you use it enough, you're going to find that it makes your life simpler. It is really, really quick and easy to move around. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Everybody who uses a digital whiteboard made mistakes when they started using it. You use it for 2 weeks and you're done. It's just so easy. And if you talk to some of the teachers in the district that have had any one of our kind of digital whiteboards, after they use it for a while, they can't understand why they never did use it all the time, because it just really does make it easier for you to organize your stuff, to review with students, to save stuff, to see what you did last class. I'll give you, for instance, when I just did my semester review in my class, I saved semester review 01 and 02, and I did that, I don't want to say that, I did that so that I don't know exactly where I got to, maybe in Orange 1 or Orange 2, when I was doing my semester review, and I can just scroll down till I get to the point where I wrote where I got to my last slide that I was on when we were doing it, and then I can just pick up from there because I'm writing on top of my slides as I'm going, and I can figure out exactly where I was. I could even write something like, start here on my slide so I know next class. When I come in next class, when I find that slide that said start here, because it shows up pretty big on my slide there, all I have to do is clear that stuff off with Control L to wipe off what I wrote, and I can pick it up from where I was last class. So if you've got PowerPoints that came with a chapter or your book, you could incorporate those right into your smart software and make any changes you need or any changes you want, and it gives you a nice way to pick up that stuff. So that's a basic introduction. Again, really, if you're using a dry erase board right now, the easiest way to get started is just put away your pens, hide them from yourself, hide your eraser, clean your board up real nice, and just start using it as your whiteboard initially. And then start incorporating graphics and headers and all the other things that you can incorporate in it too. But right now, if all you're doing is using a whiteboard, it's so easy to replace that by just using these buttons right here and picking your pen, and now I've got all those colors, and I can highlight and I can white out, and I can do all kinds of easy stuff that I couldn't do before. And I'll get into adding graphics in the next video.